There was a big thump as it hit the boat, but this time the boat kept going over.
I looked across at Tim and I was like, what's going on?
I was dozing at the time and I was just suddenly looked around.
I said, we capsized, and Tim's like, yeah, we've gone over.
This window, the only window in the world we had, was just water.
So I looked out the hatch and it was just like looking into a fish tank. We were completely submerged.
We went from sort of everything being settled to stuff falling out and ending up upside down, a bit disorientated on what was the top of the cabin. The biggest change in my mind was going from this atmosphere, these crashing waves, this howling wind, all this, you could feel it outside, to just this deathly silence. It was really surreal. I think for a minute or two we just sort of dumbstruck, couldn't believe that the boat wasn't rewriting.
We very, very soon realised that the boat wasn't going to self-right. We waited for it to self-right and it didn't.
We knew where everything was, and everything was in its place, and suddenly it was upside down. We couldn't find anything, couldn't see where everything was. It was unrecognisable as a cabin.
We could see all of our belongings just hanging there, like almost motionless. That's when it really sunk in that we were upside down underwater.
In each of the cabins we had a two-way radio, which we eventually found ours. In all the chaos it's quite hard, and we tried calling the bow cabin, Tim and Wayne, many times, but we couldn't get any reply. So we didn't know if they just couldn't find theirs, whether it was in the water, whether they're injured, so we had no idea what was happening.
It was too overwhelming to try and take the situation in.
I was just concerned that he was going to use all the air up in the cabin. Well, I just told Tim, look, you've got to slow your breathing down, bud. You're going to use all the air up.
I had no control of it. It wasn't me. It was automatic. My body was reacting to the situation.
Three or less. Fair. Good. Line reaches to land's end, including the Isles of Scilly. Northwesterly becoming variable, 3 or less. Then southerly, 3 or 4 later. Showers and occasional rain in west. Land's end, as St David said, including the Bristol Channel.
The coastline here is continuing to take a battering. I'm here at Porth Call, and there are occasional outbursts of thundery rain. There's been some lightning. We have had winds of...
I gave Tim the job of getting the phone out. I said, come on, Tim, you need to get your monkey feet working, because it was pushed right up in the bow.
I clawed around, figured I couldn't, it wasn't enough space to turn around and look for it. So I just felt around my feet and I got it and pulled it up.
Tim puts it together with the aerial, switches it on. I take the phone off to Tim, got Falmouth Coast Guard up, pressed the green button to phone them, and it came back no signal. So the frustration there of having no signal every time you try to dial it, I just can't even describe what it was like being in that situation. If we didn't get hold of them, we were going to drown.
Your instinct is just to sit tight. You're not dead in there, you stay alive, but the water's flooding in, our air's running out. We're thinking the maximum we could last in there is probably somewhere between half an hour and an hour, so you've got to make some real decisive action to get out of there, which is what we had to do.
We had an EPIRB in the cabin, which is a great bit of kit. It's an emergency beacon that the rescue services can locate you and find you. If you press the panic button on an EPIRB, the world stops. We were looking at the button to try and decide, do we, don't we? If we do, then really that's curtains for the row, everything's over. If we didn't, obviously we're in great danger.
I said, what's the best situation that can happen, Chris? And he said, well, if we can get out of the boat, turn it the right way up, dry everything out as then we could carry on. I was like, Chris, the electrics are all going to be knackered. Everything's going to be soaking wet. We're all going to be knackered. I said, this is over. We need to set the EPIRB off. Chris knew that was the answer as well, and we set it off.
Tim remembers that the booster aerial was in the box, pulls the booster aerial out, tried to get as close to sea level as he could in the corner of the boat.
And then suddenly the phone comes into life and he's like, bang, straight onto found the Coast Guard.
Good morning, Farmer Coast Guard.
Hi, Farmer. It's Mike from the rowboat Scilly Boys here.
Hello, Wayne.
We've capsized.
Roger, understand that, Wayne. What's your position? Where are you? When I picked up the call, it was just a lad called Wayne saying he'd capsized, and I thought, ooh, whereabouts are you? Expecting it to be locally in the bay or in the harbour, and everybody was starting to listen by that time. And then we discovered he was 600 miles east of New York. Roger, that's understood. How many persons on board your vessel, Wayne?
There's 4 of us.
The phone call was absolutely key. That was the link between them and us, and it's extremely fortunate they got through to us. Once we established that link, we keep them talking on it then, get all the relative information, then we can take action to help them. Roger, Wayne, that's understood. Stand by, just stand by.
Hello, Wayne, it's James, the watch manager at the Coast Guard station.
When you hear that they're capsized, their chances initially you feel are quite slim. Bearing in mind where they are, the water temperature, the wind chill factor, the height of the waves. Their situation was dire and the chance of recovery was very, very slim. You say your prayers, really.
If you have your EPIRB, we will know exactly where you are. It's vital that you keep your EPIRB with you.
When you think about those boys, it's unimaginable. To try and put yourself in that position, we're in an ops room, where it's warm, there in seas of 20 feet, extremely cold, very frightened.
Me and Tim are okay. We're up in the bow cabin, but the other 2, I've got no radio contact with them. They're in the aft cabin.
From the time the call was established with Wayne, you drew very close to the lad in a very short space of time, and putting the phone down is like losing your friend, really.
But keep that EPIRB with you, and we're going to get you some help, OK? So good luck, Wayne, and hopefully we'll speak to you soon.
Knowing their circumstance, the conditions they were in, the weather, the sea, is one of the hardest things you can do.
I knew that would be a massive mission in itself, to find us out in millions of square miles of ocean. I knew then, at that moment, that the battle for life basically was about to begin. During all this chaos, there was a beep on the phone, and I looked down and there was a text message that had come through. It was a message from Tim's girlfriend, Tash, and it said, "Tim, I love you for infinity."
What the words meant, I knew could have only come from her, because it's relevant to me and her.
And I sort of punched down on the floor and I said, "I'm not putting my mum and dad through this. I needed a driving force there."
He's ready to go. And he says, "Ready?" And I said, "Yep." And I was sort of behind him.
I twisted the handle, started pushing the hatch open, the water started flooding in, and Tim was like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, whoa." So I pulled the hatch shut and twisted the handles and locked the hatch.
I didn't know what was going to happen. That's why I panicked, because I didn't know how much water was going to come in, how it was going to come in, who was going first, what I was going to do about it, where I was going to go, what was I going to do once I got out there.
I said, "Right, are you ready?" And Tim goes, "Yeah." I said, "Right, we go out and swim up to the right."
I said, "Okay." And then Wayne just hit the door, and I remember pushing him out.
Underneath the water, it was really tranquil, quite peaceful. As I come up to take that gasp of air, it was just welcome to carnage.
I remember breathing as if you're going diving, you know, a real big. And that was it.
We heard Wayne outside of the cabin. He was shouting and screaming. He was shouting, "Tim, Tim." That really unnerved us by the way he was shouting. Desperation that we could hear. We just assumed Tim had been washed away. We thought he was gone.
I just had this nightmare that Tim had been washed off the boat or whatever, and having to tell his family, like his mum, his dad, his brother, his sister, his girlfriend.
That was the turning point really when we decided we've got to get out of here and try and find Tim if need be, and then see what we can go from there.
Don't remember how long I was underwater. I don't know where, what direction, what was going on, what hit me, what didn't hit me. Just came out. You come out, and then suddenly you got this wind and the spray and then the waves, and you just thought, you know, this is as bad as it gets, really.
Lifted ourselves out of the water and grabbed the keel, bottom of the boat, and tried pulling it back to get the boat upright, which didn't happen at all. I looked up and Tim was sat astride the keel, and then that was the moment I realised that he didn't have anything on, he was naked. It was quite a serious and worrying position to be in, because we knew hypothermia could possibly set in quite quickly.
United States Coast Guard, this is MRCC Falmouth in the United Kingdom. I have some information for you regarding the Scilly Boys. Yes, 4 persons on board.
Before we left the cabin, we sat there with the waterproof gear on. Chris had the EPIRB tied around his neck. I had a waterproof bag with a few bits and pieces in it that were going to help us.
We broke open the door, the water started pouring in, we gave it a good push, and the whole cabin just flooded.
There we were, back from the quiet from underneath the boat into the storm.
I saw Joby and Chris coming around the stern of the boat in their full kit, and I couldn't believe that there was 4 of us.
At that point, Joby decided to announce that he can't actually swim.
I just looked at him and thought, like, he's only 19, like, what position to be in?
We were now in a dire situation. Our only hope was to deploy the life raft, the emergency life raft, which was strapped to the deck of the boat, which by now was underwater.
Traffic separation scheme. Good passage to you to Germany. Coast Guard. Hotel, November Hotel 8. This is Falmouth, Coast Guard. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen.
As a strong swimmer, I took a big lungful of air and swam underneath the boat. I located the life raft. I seen one of the straps and the buckle, so I undone the first strap. I saw the second strap. I was feeling around it, trying to find the other clip. I couldn't find it, and I basically spent all my oxygen that I had in my lungs, so I had to swim back to the surface.
I was right next to Wayne while he was trying to free the life raft. He's diving down underneath the boat over and over again. At some points I'd put my arm on his back and pull him back out if he's under there for a while or if he's starting to move, and the situation we were in was really starting to sink in.
must have been absolutely exhausted.
He just looked suddenly worn out, like he just expended so much energy. Physically, he had changed. He wasn't so focused anymore. I think it was probably the first time he was thinking about himself.
I was basically going to tie us all together so that when the hypothermia did kick in and we drowned, rescue services would hopefully turn up and be able to recover our bodies. So my mum and dad would have somebody to bury and they would have somewhere to go and grieve.
Once I heard that was just a shock. I thought, no. I said, Wayne, no, I'm not having that. I'm going home. I've got 2 little girls waiting for me. I'm going home.
At that moment, something just clicked me out of it, and I thought, right, I'm not going to die. Let's just go out fighting here.
I knew there was 2 knives we had mounted on the boat, so it was decided, as I knew where they were and I bolted them there, perhaps I ought to go and get it.
You ring and you get an answer machine. Think, where do we go from here? What do we do now? No one would like to think their family's lost at sea. We all like to have closure, somewhere where the person can be buried. We can go and visit them. We can get our grief out. But if you're lost at sea, it's the unknowing, not knowing the circumstance and never having it resolved. And that must be going through people's minds, and it's just really horrendous.
Bruce passed me the knife. At that point, I knew that I had enough just to make one more go. So I swam underneath the boat, I cut down through the strap in one motion and just pulled away, pulling down towards the seabed basically. And by then I needed some air again. When I got to the surface, took a big breath of air and the raft just exploded, opened up into life.
It was going to a point that had become a real low to another, like, sort of miniature high amongst us all, that this life raft had gone up, and less than a minute I would have thought we were all in the life raft. And that there's a possibility we could get out of this still.
Our chances of survival had increased from maybe lasting another hour in the water to we might be able to last through the night in the raft.
The next problem was that the raft was full of water, so we had to start bailing. This was such a problem for Tim and Wayne, especially because of the heat loss that you can experience. These guys are really, really cold, hypothermic already, and the more water's around them, the colder they're going to get.
Me and Tim huddled together, trying to retain any warmth that we had left in us, and got underneath a blanket.
We tried for hours to get the water out of the raft and bail it and dry it, but it just kept coming in, flooding. Whatever we did, however fast we bailed, it just kept filling up.
It gets smashed by a wave, and the whole life raft would sort of crush into itself. Everyone would fall into the middle of the boat, and every time it roared, you'd all sort of group together and hold on and just think, if this thing capsized, then we haven't got a chance at all.
And we needed to pull in our lanyard, which was attaching us to the boat. And to our horror, that rope had been severed. And it got worse. On this line, where should have been attached a rowing boat, there should also have been a main grab bag. The grab bag contained communication equipment, water, food, rations, survival suits, everything that we needed. We didn't have anything at all.
We're in the middle of the ocean, hundreds of miles from land, no food, no radio. Our fate is in somebody else's hands.
It was a really, really bad situation. We'd even lost the EPIRB somewhere along the line.
That EPIRB was the key to us being rescued.
The water that was in the raft was really cold, and it would, it'd envelop your whole. It'd be anywhere around your body and your legs, and I could, could feel it up the back of your spine, and you'd feel every millimetre that it covered you.
Whilst I was bailing, Wayne was aware that Tim was going downhill quite rapidly.
To keep him alert and gauge his level of consciousness, I asked him some simple sums like 7 times 8 and 6 times table and whatnot, and he fired a few answers back at me, but I probably didn't know the answers myself. Been a thick Cornish boy and all. I was then sort of thinking, I can't take this much more, the coldness. I'm just going to fade away.
I just had this horrible picture in my head of us having got that far, having got into the life raft, having done everything right, but dying of hypothermia and just being picked up, not having been killed by the capsize or anything like that, but from the cold inside the life raft, which would have been horrendous for any family.